Hello, how are you all doing? This is Philip here, and today we are going to do a video about the pick a topic, any topic of this month of July 2018. Pick a topic, any topic is a tier on my Patreon, and the patron that is in control of that tier selects a topic that I should be talking about or cover in some shape or form. One of the ideas he suggested for this month would be to talk a little bit about what makes a compo winner demo a compo winner, or how do you identify a compo winner, how do you do a compo winner. And for those who are not aware of the term, it means a demo that is destined to win the compo, or is produced specifically to try to win the compo, get most votes possibly. There are a lot of ways to achieve this. This is not rocket science, of course, but it's also very subjective. So it depends a lot on the party that you're trying to win, of course. First and foremost, if it's a big party, if it's a smaller sized party, what categories of different scene platforms are there? Like, do you have a lot of Amiga sceners? Do you have a lot of Atari sceners? And I'm thinking mostly PC, just make sure. But you can also easily win a compo by having an alternative platform and doing a very good demo on an alternative platform. But let's focus on the PC demo compo only for starters. So I wrote a few notes here, and I'm just gonna rant a little bit about this, and hopefully it will make some sense. If you guys disagree with what I say, feel free to post on the comments below that you disagree and why, and you can get some sort of discussion going. Of course, this is just my opinions. I've been in the scene since '97. Seen a lot of winner demos. I made a few. I haven't won any major demo party ever. But I think I know a few of the tricks, and it usually takes a lot of work to make a sure winner demo, and you need some good ideas as well. So it's not easy, it's not straightforward, but here are some vague ideas of how you can achieve a compo winner demo. So first and foremost, you should have a fresh or original look and feel. That's my opinion, personal opinion. I've seen some demos winning compos that are completely bland and not fresh at all, and people still like them. Of course, this is always subjective, and it depends on how people vote, but what those demos usually do is that they compensate on other aspects. They don't have the fresh or original look and feel, but they compensate by having a lot of different parts, a lot of 3D scenes, a lot of different effects, awesome soundtrack, everything well synced, and then it just works well. But I think if you have a fresh original idea or look and feel, it will help a long way. There are also the counterpart. There are some demos that have an original, fresh look, but they don't put as much effort into the demo as the other demos usually have. They don't have huge number of assets. They don't have quality music, the sync properly. Something is not quite right there. It just feels more like a proof of concept. And when you only have a proof of concept and not going the whole mile with a fresh demo, you don't get a compo winner. Or you might have, depending on the compo, but usually you don't go that far. So you should have a fresh and original idea or a look or a feeling, a concept behind it, but you should still go the extra mile and make sure you put a lot of effort into it, having multiple parts, some sort of story or progressions, syncs on point, soundtrack on point, those kind of things. Second point that I wanted to mention was it has to be memorable or unique. This is part of the fresh original look and feel, but it can also, you can do stuff with non-original look, but still be memorable by several other ways. If you make a stupid joke, people will remember the demo for that. For example, the winner demo from Breakpoint 2003, I believe. It was actually called the winner demo from Eink and what's the group? The other group, Metal Vodka. It won because it was the demo that people memorized better. It was different. It was strange. It wasn't really good per se. The effects weren't really that good, but it stuck in people's minds, and that's what people voted. You can say some things as well from the assembly demos, the assembly demo party. Usually when it's more memorable or unique, it also tends to win. If you have a graphician with a unique style, it also stands out a bit more. If you have a specific soundtrack, like for example Jesus Christ Motocross, it became very memorable and unique because it had punk soundtrack, and you usually don't have punk soundtrack in a demo, so that makes it stand out a lot more and increases the chance that people pay attention to it while it's playing, don't find it boring because it's new, it's different, and they remember it afterwards. So when they are voting, they remember, oh, this one, I don't know, this one was pretty cool. It wasn't like anything else I'd seen before, so they give extra votes for that. Third point that I had lined down here is that the demo needs to show effort put into it, even if it didn't take you that much effort. And some people have like tools and they can just hack together a lot of different effects or different looking effects very quickly, like a month or 2 weeks or something like that. You need to make the demo look like there was a lot of effort put into it, because that translates directly into votes. When people are comparing your demo to the other demos, they will see this demo had an original idea, this demo didn't, but this demo looked like they really made a lot of scenes and they synced everything properly, and the soundtrack wasn't boring, and it had like several different parts, so you tend to give your votes to that one instead. So yeah, and effort can show in a lot of different things, syncs. But you can also do syncs very fast and quickly, especially if you have a proper tool. It's easy to do syncs. Even GNU Rocket is used a lot to do syncs properly these days. But the music needs to be well produced and well cohesive with the whole thing. It needs to be, the direction needs to be on point. It needs to have multiple parts, show that you really did different assets, not just recycled effects from other stuff. And the quantity of scenes itself needs to be different. You can't just have like 3 or 4 and that's it. You need to have a whole array of them. The biggest example here is the big demos from Andromeda Software Development, where they really show a lot of scenes. And the ones that won assembly, like Happiness is Around the Corner, and Life Force, and Spin, and that kind of thing, shows that there is a storyline and a lot of different efforts to put everything together. Winning demos from the Batman group, for example, as well, are a good example of that. They really put a lot of effort into every single scene, and it has a lot of scenes, and it follows along the narrative. People notice that a lot of effort was put into them, and that is rewarded when people are voting. So yeah. Another point, don't use recycled effects, or avoid using recycled effects. If you use them, if you have to use them, make sure they are used in a different way, because otherwise people will remember. Not just recycled effects within the demo, but also from other demos. If you're using it exactly in the same context, like a tunnel effect is a tunnel effect. If you're doing a tunnel effect again, people already seen it before, so it's not really very innovative, not very interesting. Unless you make like a spin on it and make, the textures need to fit the vibe of the demo, or the tunnel is hollow and there are multiple tunnels, something that people haven't seen before, then you can do that. Otherwise, you should avoid reusing effects that you have done before on other productions, or that you've seen on other productions. You can use them as inspiration, but don't do exactly the same thing. Unless, of course, it's on purpose. There have been a few demos that on purpose recreate other demos, but that's to play on other cards, not on recycling effects. So yeah, avoid recycling effects. You can use them, but be smart about it. Then multi-parts. Make sure a winning demo usually has multiple parts. It's not just one part. And when I say multiple parts, it's like there's this whole direction. It seems like an introduction, some scenes, some cuts, some other scenes. and then it seems to be dying out. And when it dies out, it says loading part 2, or switching to something else, or a new music starts, and you have demo reprise all over again. Not the same recycled effects, something different, going into another angle. And demos like Variform use this a lot. You see that the demo is ending, and it was an okay demo. But then there's a second part. And when you notice that there is a second part, you're like, whoa, these guys really spent some time thinking about the demos and what effects to put on the demos and how the music that needs to go and what they want to tell. I mean, the story already ended there, and they had to think of a whole different narrative that they could include and keep the story going in a way that was interesting. And when we have a second part, of course, you need to make the second part better than the first part. It can be hard, but it can be doable. Think of demos like Debris, for example. See first part, second part, and then a final part where the whole city is collapsing. And those are the essences you need to have. Variform has that. Life Force has that, for example, as well. That other demo from Kasparov from Elite Group also has that. It's all the same world, but it's 11 minutes, and it's not 11 minutes altogether. You feel like there's 3 parts to the demo, and the music drives that very well. So that's something to keep in mind. That helps people remember the demo, and that you put a lot of effort into making that demo. So multi-parts, keep that in mind if you're trying to win a compo. Even if you have like a fresh original idea, it's just very short. If you do another one after that, different kind of idea, people will notice that it's a multi-part, and they will give you more points. Another point I have here, I have cohesive scenes and soundtrack. So a mistake people often do is that they start to put more content because they need more content, because the music isn't done yet. They just put more scenes in there, and it just becomes a mess. You don't want to do a mess. You want to do something coherent, that you don't want to throw people away from thinking that you're just dumping content there. It needs to keep in track with some sort of direction. And either it's a storyline direction, or it's a color scheme direction of some sort, or you're telling a story, a theme. And that's important to translate also into the soundtrack. The soundtrack needs to be cohesive with the scenes. If the scenes are good, but the soundtrack doesn't fit at all, people will just be, oh my god, why did they use this soundtrack? And that will be negative points right there. It needs to make sense, fit both worlds. The visual and the audio both need to fit well and be cohesive together. If they sync well, you get a lot of points for that. Things properly synced really resonate with people in general. So I would keep that in mind if I was you trying to make a winner demo. References to nostalgic elements. This has been known to win a lot of compos before. You don't have to do it. It's not mandatory. But if you can put it in there and make it, truthful, not forced. You've seen a few groups do it, like CNCD and Orange sometimes just mention references to Amiga, like they mentioned the Denise and the Agna and the Paula. I'm thinking of one demo in particular, which I of course don't remember the name right now, but I'm sure you guys on the comment will know which one I'm talking about. And if you make some sort of references to nostalgic stuff, sometimes you get points, sometimes you don't. It depends a lot on the mood of the person watching. If the person watching notices that you're just referring to old school stuff for the sake of getting some votes, they won't vote for you. Also, if all the other demos on the compo are referring to old school stuff, like all of them have the Amiga ball, then you're not really winning any points, you're just being more of the same. So yeah, I would not force it. I would keep it within the theme. If you can sneak it in there, some people will notice it, then it makes sense. Otherwise, I wouldn't force it too much. Reference, already said this one, a sense of grandeur. So if a demo has this sense of being something overwhelmingly huge, you get a lot of points out of that. Not just on impact, but that you're like, it's the closure of a decade of work, or it's like this huge climax and you do multiple layers on top of it, and then there's this huge conclusion. Think of Second Reality, for example. There's this whole intro scene, very slow, whole sequence of effects, and then this the final scene where the ship is flying around the space. It really feels like it's the ending to this huge journey. And then effect scrolling, of course, that also helps. Effect scrolling, I mean credits. It also helps to feel like it's a big thing that is being finished here. Think also of the multiple endings of Life Force, when the demo seems to be ending and then the hand comes down and grabs the moon and there is more demo. That helps the grandeur effect. Or a very good intro to the second part that also works. Think, for example, Variform. Think Liquid When from How Job. It seems that the demo is ending, and then nope, just loading part 2, and the part 2 is black and white because reasons, and it really makes you think, and it gives that sense of grandeur. Saving the best effect for last also helps a lot. A good credit scene also helps a lot. Not credits, but also greetings. A very big part of a compo winner is having greetings, and not just greetings to, scroller with the names, but incorporate them into the scene somehow, into the demo, in a good scene that makes sense, like smashing the greetings is a good example of a nice way to greet and at the same time make it inclusive. What else? Yeah, the last point that I have listed here is a demo that doesn't get boring. And of course, boring is subjective. It depends a lot on the person that is watching. But overall, if you're watching the demo, your brain takes a little bit of time to try to understand what's happening. And once it understands what's happening, it wants you to go to the next part. If you stay there a long time, either it will drift away and think of something else, and that's when you usually say boring, or what. That's it. If you take too long, you will lose focus on what you're watching, and you get negative points because you're not being properly entertained that way. And of course, for you not to get bored, there have been a lot of discussions about boredom in ambient demos as well. And I'm a bit biased to talk about that because I like ambient, and I have been known to do demos of ambient and noise that last a long time. And to me, they're not boring because they are exploratory. And what I mean by this is that you are watching the effect, and when you have that thing that you already understood the effect, you start thinking introspectively on what you're watching, trying to reflect on what you're watching, what's the importance of this. And that's part of my style. And I realize this is not for everyone. And a lot of people get bored because they don't like to go into this introspective part, or they're not in the mood to go into that introspective part. They just want to watch something else, the next effect going. So a compo winner usually has that, sequence that transitions quickly from one thing to another, because they want to keep you entertained. A fact has to last exactly the number of seconds, enough for you to register that it's interesting. It's interesting, it's made this way, transition to something else. That's a big part of the thing. And if you watch a lot of compo winner demos, you will see that this is what happened. Debris has that a lot of different scenes, all of that reveal this element, move to some part else, and they conjure these different elements of the city, and then they progress the whole storyline of the city. So there's a lot of narrative going on. and a lot of narrative theory as well going into designing the demos. Maybe some of it is like subliminal. You don't even realize that you're doing this, but a lot of it is storytelling. Like you're introducing elements of the storyline one by one, and then you have to tell a story with that. That's one of the things that they teach you, how to tell stories. You introduce the characters, you introduce the setting, and then you go into the action of it, and then you have some twists around it, and then you have a conclusion. Might have a second part, might not have a second part, but this is what you should be doing. Of course, you can also be completely rogue and just cut into the meat of it, show everything, flashing in your face, Jesus Christ motocross kind of style. In your face, people won't really understand what the hell is happening, but they will get such an overwhelming effect that I don't know what the hell happened, but it was cool, that you get points out of that as well. But yeah, what I was saying, don't get boring. The demos, the effects don't they can't go boring. And for that, you have a good way, which is watching the demo from the beginning. And this is where syncs are important and where direction is important. You're watching it, and you have to have continuous transitions, like Andromeda Software Development does a lot, for example. They don't think of effects, or at least Naves did a good seminar, interesting seminar, talking about that they don't really consider what effects will be. They think of how they will transition between them. And then they will find some way of doing an effect in the middle of there that is interesting. But the most important part is the transition, to make sure that you keep the flow going and don't break that flow. So if you have a certain tempo, keep to the tempo. Don't have like an effect that is double the time of the tempo. And yeah, tricks like that. So a lot of different tricks to not get something boring. Another trick that I often used in some of my demos is have the effect, and when it starts to feel boring, if you don't have another effect to fill it up that makes sense, change something small in it, like show text, show a different overlay, use that to sync, change some parameters of the effect that is on it. That's the most classical way of make sure that something that is the same is not getting boring, because you see slight changes and they are in track with the scene or with direction or the theme of the whole thing. So yeah, but this is one of the most crucial parts. Your demo, to be a compo winner, needs to flow well and not get boring. So maybe look up some storytelling tips and tricks on how to make sure that when you are telling a story, things don't get boring. I don't know what else I can recommend in that regard. But yeah, so these are my thoughts on what makes a demo a compo winner. Let me know what you guys think. Put your comments below. Did I forget something critical? I think I mentioned content, that you have a lot of content. You should put effort into, or at least show that you have put in a lot of effort into it. The more content you have, the better. People also will take that into account. And yeah, don't think I have anything else to add. So please let me know your comments below. If you agree, if you don't agree, if you disagree, if you whatever agree. And yeah, see you next video. Bye bye everyone. Take care.